What up, guys? Welcome back to my domain. Pretty good morning so far. I wanted to touch on a subject that I think is just important in general for people to understand. There's gonna come a time in your life, it could be early on, it could be later on in life, or whatever it may be, but there has to come a time in your life where you start to look at all of the things that are around you. You know what? I'm just gonna put it like this. You have to get to a point where you start looking and you decide that you stop making excuses for why you aren't where you want to be, why whatever you're dealing with. Because here's the thing, a lot of people have a lot of different extenuating circumstances, and it gets old seeing people say things like, well, this person's successful because of this, or they had this because of this. Or I'll tell you what, from what I've experienced personally, and I do a lot of reading. I want to say this year so far I'm at like 20 or 21 books, and we're about 3/4 of the way through the year. My goal is 30, which I should. I think I'm pretty on pace to hit that. But all the different books that I've read about entrepreneurs, because I like getting to know behind them, like what's the mindset of what it takes these people to become successful. And you start to realize the good thing about reading about people that are successful is when you're chasing entrepreneurship, and I absolutely mean it when I say chasing, because there's no guarantee you'll make it. So you're essentially chasing an idea, a vision that you have in your mind, and you work hard enough, put enough work ethic, sweat equity behind it, you can achieve that. That's the great thing that you can learn by reading about successful people. But hearing about all the different, adversity they have to go through to get to where they actually want to get, right? It's good to hear those things, because as you go through them, it can be pretty discouraging. But it's one of those things where I believe it's a test, honestly, to see how bad you want it. Whether that be, they say that God gives the toughest battles to his strongest soldiers, right? And the universe is going to test you to see how bad you want it. Do you actually want to be successful in whatever you're trying to do? And I think it's good because, one, it allows you to go through that. But two, if you're ever going to show somebody else how to become successful, or mentor somebody, or work with somebody that is trying to do the same thing that you've done, what better way to coach them through that if you've already been through some type of adversity, and understanding that with each adversity there's a seed of a blessing if you look for it. Reading about other entrepreneurs and business people that have gone through that helps, right? But the other thing that I realized by reading a lot of these different people's books, and just by going through it myself, and then watching people go through day-to-day life, here's the deal. You have to start looking at, am I making excuses, or are my reasons actually valid? Because there's a lot of people that make a lot of excuses. And this was me at one point as well. It was, I don't have enough time, I have kids, I have this and that. At the end of the day, it's all an excuse, right? Because somebody somewhere has harder circumstances than you do, and they're still making it happen. And the funny thing that ends up happening is, as you overcome whatever your excuse or reason may have been, you start to have less patience when working with people that seem to have all of those excuses, that seem to not be able to do something. And the funny thing is, when I interact with certain people, I've always just looked at it as like, hey, when the timing's right, it'll come together. When you sit with enough people, or you talk to enough people, at some point they start to get it. They start to understand, because what they'll say is, I'm not trying to give you an excuse. Your brain already basically tells you when you're given an excuse. You know it, your brain knows it, and it's almost like a defensive reaction to tell the other person, I'm not trying to make an excuse. As soon as you say that to a person that has pushed through adversity, has pushed through a tough point in their life, whatever it may be, as soon as you say, I'm not trying to give an excuse, they're immediately expecting an excuse. If you want it bad enough, you'll find a way. So I challenge you to look at everything you have going on in your life. how many of those circumstances are out of your control? How many of them are actually your fault? Or how many of those situations are you actually in because of something that you did or something that you said you couldn't do? You know, and I think when you really get to the point, and I think this is having a lot of self-awareness, I had to start looking at a lot of things like that and saying, okay, am I not getting up early? I'm making the excuse that, my wife is sleeping in, or, I'm just overly tired, or I'm drained, or is it just a bunch of bullshit? Because if I can get up early to go fishing, or if I can get up early to go on vacation, I should be able to get up early to get after something that I supposedly want, right? So if it's something, if you're trying to become successful, and I say trying because a lot of people try and don't succeed at that. So if you're trying to, then you have to give it your all. You have to go 110%. You have to get yourself up tired no matter what. Like today I've had a pretty friggin' sour stomach. I don't know what it's from. And of all days, I'm going to meet with somebody that's actually buying me lunch because they want to do business together. And with all the stuff that I have lined up right now, it'd be really beneficial to them. So one of the things in business is trade-offs. You have business lunches and things of that nature. So I have a sour stomach on the day that I'm going to get a free meal. Awesome. I'm going to still eat, trust me. But you have to really look at that. Be willing to look at that and say, how many of these things are extenuating circumstances? Like maybe you have a sick child, or you're taking care of a parent, or a significant other, whatever it may be. And how many of them are just excuses that I've been giving myself that are keeping me from what I actually want? And when I think when you get to that level of thought, of self-reflection, of really picking it apart, that's when you can really start to have some amazing growth. You'll give yourself as many excuses as you'll allow, and eventually you'll give yourself so many excuses that one day, instead of living with excuses, you'll live with regret, because you gave yourself so many reasons why you couldn't make it. And then you see people around you make it, and you give an excuse like, oh, well, they're more talented, or they come from this area, or whatever. Like, bullshit. There's a lot of very talented people that have done nothing with their life, and there's people that just work their tail off, and now they're looked at as the example of success, right? Go and read some books on some of these entrepreneurs. Go and do a little research on them and what they've overcome to be able to be successful. And it amazes me how a lot of people come from other countries and come to the United States and they kill it here, because it's one of the places where you can absolutely live the American dream. But the way I started looking at it is, I was born here. And if I'm not taking advantage of the American dream, then I must be full of excuses. If people that come from other countries, they know what it's like to be at a place where even if you want to try hard, work hard, put your all into it, wake up early, go to bed late, grind, you still can't do it. Politics come into play. Having to bribe people. I met a guy that was from Mexico that said in order to get a good job at one of the top companies, and I won't name them here because I may end up doing business with them, but in some of those countries, you have to pay to get a job. Like, they'll have, 1,500 candidates for a job, and whoever decides to pay, they'll get the job. That's crazy. A lot of people make excuses, and you don't want to excuse yourself out of a life that you deserve to be living. So stay genuine and get your ass to work.